In a continuation of the NBA gambling scandal, Gilbert Arenas feels some type of way about the media coverage of the scandal. He feels as though the coverage of the NBA gambling situation has, not been a good look, because even though there are implications of the mob and La Costra Nostra, or however you say it, all you're seeing across your TV screens and your various devices is black people. And so Gilbert Arenas, feels like that's questionable. So this says Gilbert Arenas blasts NBA gambling coverage, says word mafia used but faces of Negro shown. Gilbert Arenas seemingly takes issue with the way that the media is framing the recent arrests of Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier in the FBI's gambling investigation involving the NBA. The former NBA star, who previously joked about cooperating with authorities for the investigation, addressed his thoughts about who's at the center of the media's coverage during an episode of Gil's Arena. Arenas made it clear that he has nothing to do with the gambling scandal, that he has come to become the talk of the that has come to become the talk of the NBA right as the season started. Later, Arenas joked about why he wouldn't want to get on the mafia's bad side. I watch enough movies to know that the last group you want to snitch on is the mafia. I watch Dateline. They ain't found people since 1947. I like my YouTube career. Arenas' comments came a few hours after FBI Director Kash Patel announced that more than 30 people were arrested due to a years-long illegal gambling and fraud probe that spanned 11 states involving both poker rigging operations and sports betting. So let's play a little bit of what Mr. Billups had to say.
Gilbert?
Here's what's cracking.
No, we got something to discuss. Look, I'm good for all the trolling. That's cool, but Rachel Nichols is foul.
What did Rachel Nichols do, Gil?
She used my video, and she actually wrote that I possibly snitched.
Oh, no, Rachel.
Listen, I'm going to troll with the best of them. But to ask that question,
no, she didn't do that.
because then it makes me really want to, first of all, two of them niggas is gambling on NBA. One is throwing poker games and robbing his friends. Ain't got shit to do with me. I'm gonna tell on this nigga. Wow, I'm gonna tell on him. You know what I mean? My case is all a whole bunch of Igors and Igors, right? And I don't like this. What's going on? I see the word mafia.
Yeah.
But the only faces I see is Negroes.
Yeah. Not Crenshaw Mafia.
NBA. You know what I mean? It's NBA. Like, wait a minute. Hold on, man. Like, what's going on here? What y'all going? What the NBA do to y'all?
Brother polite. Brother. That's
I have to think
brother
about it.
knowledge.
It's mafia, but it's just local.
You've been
black.
around brother knowledge. You've been
Just local black.
around brother
The
knowledge.
international crime bosses, blacks. Right. Okay.
You need a face.
They don't got jumpers.
You need a face.
You need a
They don't got jumpers.
And that's pretty much it. That's the general idea. Shouts out to Rashad McCants, man. That guy makes me laugh.
Hey, man, he was keeping it solid, bro. He ain't said a word, man.
McCants makes me laugh. He's the guy that they have on there who says the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think about that? You think there's a point to what Gilbert had to say about the way the media is covering this thing?
Yeah, I think there's a valid point there. You know, but it's common. It's a common thing that you see with situations like this. For instance, the Dittler situation, where there was a lot of hands in that pot, but you were only hearing about, the rappers. There was a lot of people who attended those parties, but you only heard about the rappers and entertainers and the ball players and stuff like that. So same thing here where, Chauncey Billups and all of this stuff going on. And yeah, man, La Costa Nostra and mafia families, like what is going on here? And the only faces that I'm seeing is, ball players. But that's common. Unfortunately, or however you want to spend that is how it goes. And the reason being is when you're dealing with organized situations, when you're dealing with organized situations and you're covering these things, you might want to be careful of how you're covering it. The unfortunate part is that these Negroes that get caught up in these situations aren't organized. So you can throw them under the bus, and where's your repercussions going to come from? Now you can start naming, mafioso over here, gobblegoo over there, and then you're going to get yourself possibly in some hot water. Now Rachel Nichols is not going to post any Italian member on her thing and say that for sure this guy's guilty. I mean, look at him, she's not going to do that because there's real life repercussions for that, because there's organizations behind those people. And there is no organization, there is no intelligentsia that these athletes or entertainers are doing their crimes in. They may look around and go, well, everybody else is doing these crimes. Guys like that in that community are doing it. Guys like that and do it. Yeah, but these people are doing it in an organized fashion. And this hand washed the other over here. This one's doing that over there. And there's a safety net for those people. But these ball players and entertainers and rappers are just moving as independent entities that that can get caught up in the wash when the inevitable spin cycle begins. So for Gilbert to point this out, to me, is obvious. B is also a deflection from his obvious possible implications of him giving details. Now, are your situations, is your individual situation as Gilbert Arenas associated with Terry Rozier? No, it's not. What about Chauncey Billups? I don't know, bro. Possibly. Gilbert, he was saying that, hey, my situation was I had an Airbnb. I would rent out my house to people who wanted to use my house for that. I snitched on those people. Okay, so that has nothing to do with Chauncey Billups. However, I followed enough RICO situations dealing with these rappers. Is the feds collect people, and when they're collecting people, they get bits and pieces of information from people and let them go. And these bits and pieces are pixels to a greater picture. And so if Gilbert Arenas said, hey, man, I didn't tell on whoever. No, but you probably gave up a few pixels, which helped make the picture to get somebody like a Chauncey Billups or whatever. Yeah, this is the piece that we need. Who else is having these types of games at the house? And because I'm sure that these guys run in circles. They go and start gambling in each other's houses or doing whatever. So who knows? So I feel as though Gilbert is deflecting here. So all in all, does Gilbert has a point? Yes, but my overall central point is that those families and La Costa Nostra, okay, they move in organizations and they move in silence. And that's why you're not hearing any names until the hammer eventually comes down. But these other players are just fodder, and they can easily get thrown up under the bus because there is nobody behind them to make sure that, they're protected and, all that good stuff. So I just think it's a testament of how overall Black people don't have an intelligence behind them. And I mean intelligence in the sense of an intelligentsia, a mob or a family or mafia or anything like that. We just move, and those people do. So that's my thoughts on that, man. But what are your thoughts on Gilbert Arenas saying that, hey, I'm seeing a lot of black people getting caught up in these things, but I'm not seeing the alleged mafias or cartels getting caught up in this. What are your thoughts, man?
He's right, but there's a reason for it. Typically, with stuff like this, the people who have the least amount of protections are the people who are at the bottom of the totem pole. It's going to be the pawns, the people who are the employees, individuals who aren't as valuable to the overall outfit, and so their names can be used because there's no threat of retribution, or they don't retain any sort of power or influence in terms of outing this person can come back to hurt you in harmful ways.
Correct.
That's the way any of these things play out. And within the context of this particular story, it just so happens that the pawns at the bottom of the totem pole are Negroes because we're talking about basketball players. If this was another operation in a different context, like if there was somehow, and I'm using a random example to try to make a point, but if there was a sports betting and poker scandal going on in NASCAR, the names being revealed would be white people, because in that particular sport, the employees, the pawns, the individuals with the least amount of power and influence, are the employees within that particular field of play, which would be white folks. So he's right by default, if that makes sense. And that's the whole thing. And so I ironically, this sort of relates to the point that you made. It really is a testament to how the individuals who are being named in the investigation, it reveals their sheer lack of power and protection. Despite the fact that they are millionaires or multimillionaires and they were playing in the NBA or they were coaching in the NBA, in the grand scheme of things, all of that is irrelevant. Because at the end of the day, as well paid as they may be, they are nevertheless employees in the NBA. They don't retain any sort of ownership. They don't have any sort of equity stake. They don't have the kinds of protections that individuals higher up who stand to lose more by being named have. Thus, they can be protected under the guise of more anonymity. These guys don't have that kind of power. These dudes are just well-paid employees. I forget what we were talking about before, where I tried to drive that point home, because there's a tremendous amount of disconnect between the general public in terms of the perception that they have of the stature of pro athletes. And at the end of the day, unless you're in those rooms and you're getting weird, like LeBron, for example, you don't have those kinds of protections because you're just a worker. You're an employee. So when Shart hits the fan and you're involved in malfeasance, you're going to be the first person who gets named because you're at the bottom of the rung. So does he have a point? Yeah, but he has a point by default because we're talking about the NBA, and statistically speaking, when you're dealing with NBA business, you're going to be talking about black folks. So that's why you're seeing nothing but Negroes in terms of the media coverage, because in this particular context, it's the Negroes who are the employees and the people who are at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah, agreed, man. And also, like, I like to bring up the show Ozarks as an example of, because Ozark was pretty much based on, hey, it's a small town. Big whoop, I can come in here and run this place. But even though it's a small town, there's hands you got to shake. There's people in control. There's a power dynamic going on in that little town. And that is going on everywhere. And if you don't move in a particular way, you are the low thing on the totem pole. There's another example. I was doing some, history type of stuff. For whatever reason, I was infatuated with samurais for like 3 weeks. So I'm doing all kinds of digging and research. And what I found out about samurais is that samurais were actually the mob. They weren't just, we're going to, with our swords and stuff. No, they were the mob. And so what they would do is they would do typical mob things, shake people down, do all this other stuff or whatever. And they were the muscle And so what they realized was over the years is that going through and doing combat and all this other stuff, it's not fitting. It doesn't work. So the samurais went from combat to going into politics. So then they started controlling Japan and stuff like that through politics. So there's lineages in Japanese politics that trace back to samurais. I bring that point up to say that the mafias and all of that stuff like that everybody loves to know, everybody loves to talk about, they make movies about in Hollywood as if that was something that went back in Prohibition, and those people aren't existing anymore. They're still around. They just went into politics. They just went into certain areas of business. They went in certain areas of the judicial system and other things. So if Fat Tony get caught up in a situation, there's somebody that actually works in the judicial system to make sure that Fat Tony don't really get bammed up that way. So these families, they move in an intelligence. So that's what I meant as far as that these athletes don't have that intelligence behind them. They don't have these families and these connections that make America run. So if there is a situation where there is a large scandal that goes on, there's some files out there that the FBI lost. All right. Well, how did they lose these files? There's some connections going on there. All right. And then so now there's a situation going on with these pro athletes getting caught up in this stuff, and they need a splash play. They need a splash play. They need names, So they'll give you Chauncey Billups. They'll give you Kevin Garnett. They'll give you Damon Jones, Terry Rozier. All right. Hey, let's not forget our boy Beasley. Right. So they'll give us these names that make circulations, to talk about these things that are obvious that are going on. And these, through the court of public opinion, the NBA, the NFL, and now the FBI are doing right by the sports bettors, and they're cleaning up these bad actors. Hell, and even in this situation, they even gave us names of mafia families and possible cartels. But as we didn't get any individual names with those, we just got these blanket names. So at this point, I don't even know if we're actually going to hear individual names of these mafia families and stuff like that, or cartels. I think that that's just going to be a blanket name. And once they do their investigation or whatever, they're going to say that this person got locked up or whatever. Hey, Fat Charlie, you're going to have to do your time, man. Whoop-de-whoop, But business as usual. To me, this is a horse and pony show. This is no different than I believe it was something like that in The Wire, where you make arrests for the news. You do things for the headlines. And that's all this thing is. Because everybody knows sports betting is getting a little funky. And let's clean up the act. Let's throw some Negroes under the bus. I think that's exactly what's going on here. And people that are actually in the white collar crimes, that actually have families, that actually have connections, all right, you'll never hear those names. All right. And so what this exercise is supposed to do is catch all the bad actors. But I'm telling you right now, the true bad actors, okay, are still fixing books and doing all these other things. So as I mentioned, Gilbert has a point. Okay, he does have a point, but that doesn't deflect, at least for me, the fact that the timing of all of this stuff going on not too long after he said, I'm going to snitch, makes him look kind of crazy. But yeah, I think everything that I just mentioned there, kind of articulates the fact that these athletes are at the bottom of the totem pole, because you need power and connections and muscle in order to make sure that your name don't get caught up in the headlines like this. And we don't have that. So I think that this situation, amongst others, should highlight to Black people that we need to move like how other people in the world are moving. And if we don't, we're going to continue to be in these types of situations.
I mean, anybody who thinks that cleaning it up like this means that it's all going to go away, you're fooling yourself. Like if you think, Damon Jones and Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier means that gambling and sports betting corruption in professional sports is gone, or that it's somehow less than what it was before. Nah, man. It's going to keep on moving the way it's been moving. There's nothing stopping that.
Yeah. Hey, man. Be safe out there, y'all.
Yeah, for sure.